Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Adam Green here with No More News. Thank you all for joining me today, Thursday, August 21st, 2025. Going to be discussing the Abrahamic Psyop with our guest back on the show, the legend from over on YouTube, Gnostic Informant. You guys are about to attain true gnosis with Gnostic Informant. What's up, buddy? Good to have you here.
What's going on, man? Glad to be back.
Just discussing the greatest psyop of the last 2,000 years. Interested in hearing your take on it.
It really is, because I mean, I'm not a big conspiracy theory guy. I mean, I'm open to them. I'm interested in them. I think they're fascinating. I think, Kennedy, 9/11, all that stuff. There's definitely some very valid rabbit holes to go down when it comes to those subjects. But what is a psyop? It's a psychological operation. It isn't, by definition, it is an operation to get someone psychologically to do something or to follow something or to convert them, whatever. But it's psychological. Believe something. Yeah. Exactly. It goes deep into the psyche, the mind. And so religion is the most obvious place when it comes to psychological operations. It's the easiest one, because so much about religion is psychological. And so when we look at the rise of Judaism and Christianity, and Judeo-Christianity, that term, people hate that term, but it's so valid and it's so clear why that term is being used. Because Judaism is not like this old ancient tradition that goes all the way back to before writing or something like people think. It's only a couple centuries older than Christianity. I used to think Judaism was like the father or parent to Christianity, but really they're like brother and sister. They're like siblings to Yahwism as the older tradition. Like Yahwism is this older sort of archaic pagan tradition that you get in Canaan and Israel. And then the sibling or the offspring of Yahwism is Judaism and Christianity. It's like boom, boom, one, two. And then Islam is like the retarded stepchild that gets adopted late in life. Like after Christianity and Judaism already like in college and moved out, and then they Yahwism decided to adopt another retarded kid. That's Islam. But
I just thought of a different term, not a psychological operation, but it's almost more of a theological operation. So maybe we need to coin the term a theop.
It is. It's a theop. It's both.
Theop.
It's a theop and it's a psyop. And the reason why it's so clear that it is because what Judaism was intending to do was to create a national identity for the people that were living in Judah, Israel region, which by that time was all just like this kingdom that Herod was like, talking about first century, this kingdom that Herod had inherited because the Romans kind of like put him in as a puppet. And so Judaism before that, you get in the Maccabean period, similar situation. They're the dominant people in the land is like this is ruling from Jerusalem. So Jerusalem becomes this like center for the psyop. And what it is it's backdating itself, trying to push itself back into the farthest reaches in history. And so we see the playbook in Plato. You and I have talked about this, where Plato discusses in his Republic, he says, if you really want people to follow your laws in a republic, in a good society, you have to tell the people that these laws are so ancient that they go back to the heroes and even the gods. And if you could convince the people that these laws are so ancient that they go back to the gods, they will follow them. So, and this is exactly what's happening in the Torah. You have this figure, Moses, in the deep past, never mentioned by anybody. Never shows up in a primary source, Never comes up in any any inscriptions anywhere. Nothing about Moses. All of a sudden, there's this character named Moses.
The Egyptians
going all the
didn't
way,
write about the Exodus? Is that what you're saying?
right? Nothing. All of a sudden, there's this figure named Moses being placed into history as this forefather of these people who gave them these laws. And then you have stories about Abraham even before Moses, and Noah and the ark, and Joseph and the 12 tribes, and all this stuff is just kind of being put into one big epic called Genesis, and Exodus is the next part with Moses.
Torah.
And then the Torah would be the whole 5 books that includes the laws and all that stuff. But the epic really is Genesis. And so they rewrite this whole history of themselves, and it gives them this proud, antique feeling that they are chosen, that this is the greatest thing ever. We have these special laws handed down by God to our people and our people only. And then I found out from reading like Bruce Loudon, Niels Peter Lemke, and Russell Gmerkin, this was actually the normative thing of going on in this time period, 3rd century, 2nd century BCE. Greek cities were doing this all over the place. They were writing national epics of, don't do that, stop. My dog's trying to grab something. They're writing national epics, and they're placing themselves back into history where Heracles got the laws and gave it down to our ancestors. Even Macedon did this. Alexander the Great's dynasty, going back to his father was Philip, and then before that there was Amyntas, and Amyntas was, if you go like 10 generations back, you get Heracles. So they were doing this too. Even Macedonia was doing this. They were claiming descent from Heracles and claiming that their laws came down from the gods. And so, and this was a very this was a thing that people were doing in the spirit of Plato in the 3rd century BCE. Everyone was doing it. All the cool kids were doing it. But for some reason, it really took off in this one place called Jerusalem. And then it sets up this whole backstory of a messianic coming of a new figure, right? And so you and I have been talking about this whole thing about like mythicism. Does it even matter if there was a guy anymore? Because even if there was a guy, all the stuff that's written about him in the Gospels are all drawing from Old Testament motifs. You know, the idea of him carrying his cross is like very analogous to Isaac carrying his wood up to his own death, where the father is going to sacrifice him. And, you know, that's very analogous to what you find in the Old Testament. You also get Joseph is the one chosen son, the one that the father loves the most. And his other brothers are jealous and they hate him. And Judah, by the way, in the Septuagint, it's Judas. Judas is the one who plots and comes up with this idea. I don't know if you want to pull this up. It's in Genesis, where Judas comes up and says to his brothers, I have an idea. We can get rid of Joseph. Why don't we sell him to the Midianites and get him out of here? And then we'll tell our stupid father that he fell into a ditch and the animals ate him. He'll believe it. And then we'll get some shekels from the Midianites too. We'll get 20 shekels for it. So Judas in the Old Testament does exactly what Judas does in the New Testament. It's the same name. There's no different. It doesn't go from Judah to Judas. In Greek, it's Judas. And in Hebrew, it's Judah. Did you find it? Mm-hmm. Judas said to his brothers, what will we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him. After all, he is our brother. He is our own flesh and blood. His brothers agreed. So when the Midianite, by the way, this is how you can tell there's 2 different sources that are being used, and like the scribes don't know what to do. So it says the Ishmaelites, and then all of a sudden the next sentence, it's the Midianites. Which one is it? Who knows?
You told me about how there's another version where it's the Edomites, right?
Yeah. There's like all kinds of different manuscripts that these scribes are looking at, and they don't know what to do with them all. So they just kind of mix them together a little bit. That's just kind of how they did. Okay, so what happens? The Midianites come down, and they sold them. Go up to the 28. Yeah, there you go. So when the Midianite merchants came by, his brothers pulled Joseph out of the cistern and sold him for 20 shekels. This is Judas's idea. Judas just sold Joseph, and Joseph is a picture of Christ in so many ways. And so what happens is, this is the crazy part. They got Joseph's robe, slaughtered a goat, dipped the robe in blood, and they took the robe back to their father. That is a picture of the sacrifice of the lamb, right? It's a goat, but whatever. It's like you could see the typology there. They kill a goat. They need to sacrifice this goat in order to get away with this deed that they just did, and they dip the blood in the robe, just like the high priest, the Levite priest, during the Yom Kippur will sprinkle the blood on the altar. So it's kind of like there's a play on words going on here.
This probably inspired whatever Christian forged the Shroud of Turin. It's the same thing, dipping yep. a cloth in blood.
I bet you're 100% right. I bet you're 100% right about that. That sounds like what's going on here. And so, anyways, look at this. Go down. It says he recognized, and it said, "It is my sons. My some ferocious animal has devoured him. Joseph has been torn to pieces." That's like the death of Zagreus being torn to pieces, right? And in many ways, people compare Joseph to Dionysus and Osiris. In the Talmud, it says that Serapis is a deified Joseph. That's a whole other rabbit hole we can go down. But Joseph is this dying and rising God figure hundreds of years before Jesus is. It says in the next passage, Jacob tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, and mourned for many days. So in the mind of in the mind of Jacob, Joseph is dead. He's dead. He's gone. He's dead. This is a dying and rising story. So in the next chapter, you end up getting Joseph going into Egypt. Then he goes into the dungeon for like years, and then he's forgotten about by the guy he met in the dungeon, and he prophesies the future. He tells a future of like a vine and a grapevine and wine and bread. It's like a picture of the Eucharist in Joseph's dreams. All this weird proto-Jesus-y stuff you find in Joseph. It's very in your face. And then what happens? Joseph rises out of the dungeon in Egypt, and he becomes second to the Most High. Pharaoh's the Most High. Joseph is second Most High. And that is like Plato's divinity. Plato has two gods on top. You have the one and the demiurge. Demiurge is not evil like in Gnosticism. He's just the demiurge, the one and the demiurge, and he calls the second god the world's soul. So this is like Joseph is like the world's soul. He's the second most high, and so it's a resurrection of Joseph. And in the New Testament, this is exactly what happens to Jesus. He gets sold by his brother Judah, his fellow Jew, and fellow 12 tribes, just like Joseph's one of the 12 sons. Judas is one of the 12 sons. Joseph's one of the 12 sons. It's the same story being repackaged. And so I can keep going on and on about examples of typology. This is what your book's going to be about. I can't wait to read your book. Don't you have a bunch of examples of this, right? In your book?
Yeah, he's the new Moses also. He does the 40 days in the desert. There's the slaughter of the innocents like Pharaoh. He not Joseph, but Joshua, he crosses through the Jordan River into the promised land like Jesus goes through, gets baptized in the Jordan River also. Yeah.
There's hundreds of examples of either Psalms. A lot of it's from the Psalms, where they'll take Psalms of Psalm 22, where it says, I'm surrounded, and they pierced his hands and feet, and they have all this imagery of a crucified figure, right? Or some sort of figure being killed and tormented. That gets applied to the cross. Whether it's in Psalms, whether it's in Genesis, whether it's in Isaiah 53, the suffering servant, whatever. All Zechariah, his feet will touch the Mount of Olives, it says. You want to pull that one up? Zechariah, it says his feet will touch the Mount of Olives. Zechariah has all this imagery of what Jesus is going to do. So then when you find out Jesus is preaching on the Mount of Olives, you're like, either Jesus knew that. So this is there's two ways of looking at this. Either Jesus existed and he knew that he was going to go to the Mount of Olives to teach because he wanted to fulfill Zechariah. But there's nothing special about that if that's the case. It just means it's a self-fulfilled prophecy. Or what you would go with is it didn't happen. They just wrote the story. They pulled up Zechariah. They said, on this day, his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, east of Jerusalem. Okay. And then what happened is they just wrote the story about Jesus being on the Mount of Olives. That's another way to look at it.
That verse is about destroying the nations, by the way. The destroyers of Jerusalem destroyed. So Rome destroyed Jerusalem. So Jesus on the Mount of Olives as the Messiah is to destroy Rome and the nations.
That's the next thing I was about to say. Yeah. Because you and I have been talking lately about is it even possible for there even to be a guy anymore? Because Jerusalem falls exactly on 70 AD. They place the birth of Jesus exactly 70 years before the fall of the temple. Well, we know why that number is so perfect. Because they could have calculated when Herod died and got to 4 BC, or when the census was and got 7 AD, but they didn't. They wanted to be exactly 70 years because that is what you get from Daniel, the 70 weeks of in 70 weeks an anointed will be cut down, and then but originally it comes from Jeremiah, where it says it's the 70 years of the destruction of the temple. So in Jeremiah, here's what happens. Babylon comes and sacks Jerusalem, and they go into captivity for 70 years, and then they rebuild the temple again. But in the case of the second temple, they get sacked, or I'm sorry, the Messiah comes, and then it's 70 years, and then the temple falls. It's like a mirror image of the 70. So one of them's facing destruction backwards. They got destroyed, and then they were rebuilt in 70 years. And then in the other case, the Messiah comes, they don't recognize him, and then 70 years later, they get destroyed forever. And you never get their temple back because of that. It's too much on the nose for him to be exactly 70 years. If you can pull up that verse from Jeremiah, where 70, just pull up the 70 years verse.
It's Jeremiah 25.
Yes. 25:11.
12.
Yeah.
It's talking about the 70-year Babylonian exile.
Oh, is that the one from Jeremiah? Yeah, go to that one.
This is the tweet of all the 70s. And then what a coincidence, also 70 years after Jesus was supposedly born.
Yep.
Okay.
And in the whole land shall be desolation and an astonishment, and these nations shall serve the king of Babylon 70 years. And that's what happened, like 70 years. And it shall come to pass when the 70 years are completed, I will punish the king of Babylon and that nation and for their iniquity in the land of the Chaldeans and make it perpetual desolation. The Persians come in, and this is the funny part. What do they call the person who completes this act? King Cyrus.
Anointed.
They call him the Messiah, the Moshiach in Hebrew, or Christos in Greek. So the Messiah comes, saves Israel, and brings them back and rebuilds the temple. But in the case of Jesus, that's an image of the triumphant Messiah coming as a military leader, destroying the enemy, rebuilding the temple. He was the triumphant Messiah. But Jesus, and the reason why I say that is because the Dead Sea Scrolls talks about two Messiahs, one from the line of Aaron, which is the priestly Messiah, suffering Messiah, the other one from the line of David, who is the king Messiah, triumphant Messiah. Well, so Jesus comes, apparently in the text, in the Gospels, Jesus comes exactly 70 years before 70 AD when the temple falls, and he gets killed. what's interesting about that is David lived for exactly 70 years too. So David is the Messiah, and David's called Messiah. Jesus is from the line of David. David, at age 30, starts his reign as king. He reigns for exactly 40 years and then dies. With Jesus, his ministry starts at age 30 exactly, and then 40 years in between him and his ministry, the temple falls. Isn't that fucking crazy? Like this, the numbers are so spot on that this needs to be on the table for mythicism to be true. Like
Believers
it's really
would say it's God's divine pattern, but
of course they would.
Yeah, I think this is just numerology, superstitious, working things out in that way and repeating themes. Like all of these 70s are basically just riffing on other 70s, the original 70s, like the 70 nations, the 70 translators of the Septuagint, the 70 disciples of Jesus.
Yep.
Joseph, when he was in prison in Egypt, learned the 70 languages as well. And
yep. So David reigned over Israel for 40 years, and he reigned over Hebron 33 years. I'm sorry, that was Hebron where he reigned. But he reigned over Jerusalem 33 years, which is another interesting number. Jesus dies at age 33, right? So you have a 33 with David ruling over Jerusalem for 33 years. You have him starting his king of Israel at age 30. You have him dying at age 70, and then you have him being called the Messiah. With Jesus, he's from the line of David. He also starts his ministry at age 30, dies at age 33, and then there's a 40-year period between his death and the temple falling at 70. Almost like Jesus represents Israel's death. That's what I'm getting at. Mm-hmm. Because in the reason why I'm saying that is because in the book of Isaiah, the suffering servant is Jacob, Israel. The whole nation is the suffering servant. But that motif of the suffering servant is being put onto Jesus. So what I think is going on here, what I think is a possibility here, is the gospel authors are writing an allegory of the fall of Israel itself and saying that this is the character of Jesus. And now that Jesus is dead, or now that the temple is fallen and Jerusalem is no more, now we have a worldly kingdom because Jesus is resurrected in all of us. We don't need the temple anymore. He's within all of us. And we can just go wherever we want now. That's the new Judaism.
Yep, the spiritualized replacement of the temple, the lost temple cope Judaism that had spread to the Gentiles.
Yeah, so
exactly.
So you find this in Philo. Before Philo never mentions Jesus, but you find this kind of theology already brewing. I sent you that passage, remember, a couple of days ago, where Philo talks about. He says that this is what he says. The city, he says, there's another expression found in Psalms. This is on dreams. The course of the river makes the glad city gold, a city of God. I mean, what city? For the holy city, which exists at present, in which also the holy temple is established at a great distance from any sea or river, that it is clear. The writer he says, the writer's not talking about Jerusalem, but figuratively to speak of an other city. In truth, and I'm just going to jump a little ahead, the whole world is the city of God. And then he says, in the next passage, he says that God's going to send a cupbearer, the Logos, the Word, who is going to give a sacred cup. And he describes it as an ambrosial medication. He says, if I'm going to employ the language of the poets, it's like an ambrosial medication. Now, what does that mean in the language of the poets? Ambrosia is the eternal life fruit that the gods on Olympus eat to become gods. This is the cup of eternal life. He says, Philo literally says this in the 40s AD. The most sacred cup, the holy goblet, except the cupbearer of God, the master of the feast, the Logos, not differing from the cup itself, but being itself in an unmixed state, pure delight, sweetness, and pouring forth ambrosial medicine. He's saying that this cupbearer, called the Logos, is the cup that everyone's going to drink to get eternal life. He's literally describing the Eucharist. So you can see in Judaism, in the first century, this idea was already brewing up. A sort of universalist Judaism was already in the works before Paul.
Yeah, it makes it much more likely. I've heard it speculated that Paul was, and the first Christians were familiar. They were fans of Philo and his Logos figure, who's like a pre-existent angel and creator of the world and all these things, the way that Paul describes Jesus. And also, so this is a big find, you guys, that Neil's breaking here. Philo also talks about a cup very similar to the Eucharist ritual, so very likely that's where Paul got it from.
Yep. And he constantly talks about this like idea of a new Moses. He wrote a book called The Life of Moses, and he basically talks about like Moses is God. And what he means by that is Moses had the mind of God, therefore he can act and do things that God would do if he was human. And he's explaining what you find in the Gospels for Jesus. That's what Jesus is. He's the God-man. And then he talks about Mary. In the Old Testament, there's this Miriam character he says she has the gift of prophetic frenzy, and she follows Moses around, and she's like the gift of prophecy, and she's also like this female character. And then he says Aaron is also one of his disciples, is like the Logos. So he has this like triad going on. And I wonder if all you have to do is take Philo's triad of Moses, Aaron, and Mary and just change Moses into Jesus and then change Aaron into like Peter or something. But you get the same the same nuts and bolts are there in Philo's Life of Moses. But whoever constructed the Gospels decided they wanted to go with the name Jesus. And this is what I wanted to bring up too, is why Jesus? Why not another Moses? Right? And I was looking for like this idea. So we in mystical Judaism, in Christianity and Kabbalah, there's this idea of gamatria. If you plug in Jesus' name in Greek, Jesus, it equals exactly 888. Which is interesting because David was the eighth son. He had 7 brothers. He was the 8th son. So David being the 8th son, and then Jesus oddly has this 888 gematria. That's weird off the bat. But then you go a little bit deeper. What is 888? Well, the Valentinians left us with a source, and the Valentinians wrote, Valentinus was an early Christian mystic who became a heretic, but not in his lifetime. We talked about him before. Valentinus was almost the Pope of Rome. In the year 136 AD, he was in Rome. He was well respected. He was considered a Catholic bishop, Orthodox. No one called him a Gnostic. No one called him a heretic. That's not until 50 years later when people are writing back and going, no, we don't like that guy. They start changing their doctrines. It's not Valentinus. But here's what he writes. Jesus possesses the ineffable generation. From the mother of the universe, I mean the first tetrad, proceeded forth in the manner of a daughter, the second tetrad, and became an ogdoad. This is all going to sound confusing. I'll explain it in a second. From which proceeded forth the decade. This was produced 10 next gen. And he says, the decade, therefore, coming in along with the ogdoad and rendering it tenfold, producing the number 80, and again, making 80 tenfold, generated the number 800. And so it is that the entire number of the letters that proceeded forth from the ogdoad into decade is 888, which is Jesus, the name Jesus, according to the number in letters, is 888. Now, likewise, The Greek alphabet. I have to pull this up to show people because they're going to be like, huh? Let me just send myself something right now, and I'm going to share my screen and show this. And so let me finish reading this off real quick, and then I'll actually, let me put it up on the screen while I'm reading this. Actually, just give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. This is gonna sound crazy, but I promise I'm bringing something good here. All right. 1 second. Okay. Let me share my screen. Share. Send request. Can you see this?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to finish reading this, and I'm going to explain what this says on the screen. Jesus, according to the name Jesus, according to the number in letters, gamatria, is 888. Now, likewise, the Greek alphabet has 8 monads, eight decades or duods, and 8 hectonads or triads. These exhibit the calculated sum of 888. That is, Jesus, the Logos, who consists of all numbers and all letters in the alphabet. And on this account, he is called Alpha and Omega, indicating his generation to be from all. He's not lying. He's not lying. What do I mean by that? Well, if you look at the gematria system, now some people are going to go, there's no 6. You want to know why? Because the digamma is a w sound, was dropped out of the Greek alphabet. So you're never going to need the number 6 in gematria. So the system actually happens to work out exactly where there is 8 digits that have 8 one-digit row. So the first digit, this first line on top where it's alpha through theta, alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, they all have 1 digit. Those are called monads. Then the next line, the middle line, iota through p, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, chi, omicron, p. Notice how those all have double digits, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, right? And then the third line down, all of them, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, chi, psi, omega, those have 3 digits. So those are the octuads or the triads, which means each line has exactly 8 digits, 8, 8, 8, which means his name in Greek is the Logos, is the entire alphabet, 888, which makes me think they chose this name to fulfill this Logos character. Not only that, the name Jesus, if you look at the Greek, it starts off with iota, eta. That name, that word is very sacred. Like, for example, the word like hieros means holy. It can mean, could also mean to heal, or it can mean like poison. It's the name of Apollo. Apollo has this epithet called Yeios. Stop touching that.
Who did this, by the way? Who first added this up? Did you say?
Valentinus did. This goes back to the ancient This goes back to the ancient Pythagoreans.
He's considered a Gnostic, right? They call him Gnostic after the fact. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but he's one of the oldest sources we have of Christianity. He's contemporary with Papias and Justin Martyr, and he's contemporary with all the oldest early 2nd century Christians. He was around from day one. He was one of the this is not new. This is super old. Goes back to the beginning. So this idea was already floating around in the beginning. There was another. So
they were
Gnostic,
doing gematria. The early Christians, like
yes,
Valentinus, were doing gematria with Jesus' name.
With Jesus' name.
That's a little sus. Red flag. Red
Isn't
flags.
It?
Yeah.
And it makes me think they chose the name Jesus because of this, and because of the whole yay. By the way, here's another dead giveaway. How you know how you can tell something's a fable versus a historical story is when the person's name sort of represents what they're doing in the story. For example, like if I write a story about a guy who's the flying man, his name's Flying Man, right? And what does he do in the story? He flies. You would go, yeah, it's a fable. You made that up. And then what if the scholar was like, but there could have been a guy named Flying Man still. He might not have flew, but we just don't really know. He could have been a guy still. But that's kind of what's happening with Jesus. His name, Yeh, means to heal. It means healer or saver, saving of Yahweh, salvation, to heal. Yeah. He's doing that in the story. He is the salvation in the story. So the name fits the whole the idea
and Judah and Judas is who betrays and rejects him also. Could have been a real guy, even though it's symbolically obviously representing the Jews are rejecting their Messiah and representing Judah and Joseph rejecting his brother.
That's when I realized Bart Ehrman is not someone I should trust listening to. When he started talking about the historical Judas, and he said in one of his videos, he was talking to Alex O'Connor, and he said, well, I think he existed because, I mean, he probably thought that Jesus failed, and he was pissed, so he turned on him.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, everything you just said presupposes the story already. It's all circular. What are we doing here? Like, what the hell is going on? And you don't know about the Old Testament Judah and how in the Psalms it talks about a betrayer will come who I'll share my bread with. Mm-hmm. I wonder if we can find that Psalm. I could pull it up actually.
I think it's Psalm 40.
Psalm 40. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Psalm 40.
Bread.
You found it? I just pulled up
Psalm 40 speak of a familiar friend who ate bread but lifted up his heel against him.
Yeah.
Oh, it's 41. Even my close friend who I trusted, who
Psalm
shared
40,
my bread, has
40
turned
verse
against me.
1? Or is that what you're saying? Or
41 verse 9.
Oh, 41:9. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it says, let me just see. I'm pulling up the this other version. It says Psalm 41:9. Hold on, let me just pull up a different version. So it says, even my close friend who I trusted, who ate my bread, has lifted his heel against me. Now look at the verse. Mark verse. Jesus dips bread. Judas. He literally says, here he goes. Mark 14:20. Jesus says it is one of the 12 who dips his bread into the bowl. He literally makes Judas dip his bread that they're all eating at the table to fulfill Psalm 41:9. It's so clear what's happening there. You have a betrayer from Psalm 41:9 that needs to be in the story for some reason, and Mark 14 literally makes Jesus have Judas, or Jesus says out loud, the betrayer is the one who will dip his bread, and then Judas dips his bread. It's like, and you read this, you spent 40 years of your career as a New Testament scholar, and you haven't ran into this yet, and I just a couple years in have already figured this out.
Look at John too. Jesus predicts his betrayal. I'm not referring to all of you. I know those I have chosen, but this is to fulfill the passage of Scripture. He who shared my bread has turned against me. They even cite it and have Jesus cite the verse.
They even hold your hand and tell you it's from Scripture.
Yeah. and Bart Ehrman's like, I think that's historical, actually.
Yeah, he does. Isn't that it's great? The leading New Testament scholar of the world that everyone cites is talking about this like it really happened. And I don't know why he's not a Christian then. Like, why do you pretend to be an atheist scholar when you think all this actually happened? In your worldview, this is all fucking miraculous. The fulfillments are happening. You should be a fucking Christian then. Might as well if you believe all this, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, did Jesus have Judas betray him knowing he would fulfill the prophecy on purpose? Is he going to take that route? I don't think so.
I bet you that's no, that'd be ridiculous.
Well, look at this, too. I mean, they're holding, like you said, I like the way you explained that. They're holding your hand and explaining to you what is going on. When Jesus said he came to fulfill every bit of the law. That means he's just the fulfillment. He's the spiritual. He's the mythical embodiment of all the scriptures. Like, look at Luke 24. Beginning with Moses and all the prophets, Jesus explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. So they were just reading all of their sacred scriptures as secretly being about Jesus. And then in this story in Luke, they have Jesus saying, look, this is actually about me. Oh, just ignore Jesus is like, ignore the context what that's actually about. He's like,
yep.
Yeah, the servant doesn't mean Israel more in Isaiah 53. This is about me. They were doing this even before. Look at how much holding the hands, okay? How clear it is. Paul says, the gospel that he's teaching, I did not receive it from any man, nor was I taught it. Rather, I received it by revelation from Jesus Christ. He got it from revelation and scripture. In 1 Corinthians, Christ died for our sins according to the scripture, raised on the third day according to the scriptures. As in, their knowledge, their way of knowing this was from the scriptures. Yeah. One more, the best one. Jesus has now revealed and made known through the prophetic writings. Jesus isn't known because they witnessed his miracles on earth, which Paul doesn't describe any miracles. He's made known through the prophetic writings.
Yep.
And this is just the biggest one. All the scriptures. And then how about the beginning of John? The Word became flesh. The Word is the scriptures. Became a man. And Christians will be like, that just means he fulfills them. No, this is code that they're just fulfilling scriptures. And then what a coincidence that everything about him in the scriptures, like look at the birth. Every aspect of Jesus' birth in the nativity story is from prophecy. A virgin shall bear a son, Isaiah 7:14. For to us a child is born, he will be called Mighty God, Isaiah 6. You are my son, today I have begotten you, Psalm 2:7. Jesus comes out of Egypt, like Hosea, out of Egypt I call my son. He's born in Bethlehem, Micah 5:2, like the messianic Davidic Messiah has to be born out of Bethlehem. He shall be called a Nazarene, as the scripture said, meaning riffing off a branch. Herod's slaughter of the innocents, the weeping for the children, the star, not real, obviously. Numbers 24:17, the star will arise out of Jacob. Jesus in the manger is from Isaiah 1:3. Jesus swaddled in the clothes is from Wisdom of Solomon 7:3-4.
Yep.
Every single aspect of it.
That's what Robert M. Price, he's an old guy, and I know you have he has some weird feelings about you, but regardless, he's right. His latest book is basically putting together everything that's in the New Testament that's drawn from either an Old Testament sort of motif, like doing typology or some sort of like reconstruction, or it's from some other, or it might be doing mimesis of the Bacchae or something. Mm-hmm. And he puts it, and he basically is saying like, what's left? And it's almost, I think he says like nothing. Mm-hmm. There's nothing left after that. Almost everything that's in the Gospels is from somewhere being redone, some sort of like remix of something, some sort of retelling of the Bacchae, or some sort of like polemic on Homer, or some sort of Middle Platonic philosophy, or whether it's fulfilling a prophecy or something. And when you put all that together, when you look at what's left, that's not one of those, almost nothing. And some would say all you have is just him getting crucified. But then you look at like Prometheus and Ishtar and the several deities like Attis that's pinned to a tree. Then you're like, maybe that might be drawing from those. You don't even, almost, that's not even very clear if that's really original anymore. You and I talked about L'Orealis.
That's Bart Ehrman's whole argument, is that the Jews would never have invented a crucified Messiah. Yes, they would.
Nonsense.
They believe the servant was the Messiah. They're reading Isaiah 53. There's your pierced Messiah that dies for your sins and your transgressions. And not to mention, so he's pierced in Isaiah.
The pierced Messiah, Miss Scroll?
the pierced Messiah scroll, the Dead Sea Scrolls. There's the pierced one in Isaiah 53. There's the pierced one in Zechariah 12:10. There's the pierced one in Psalms 22, which was already connected into these network of passages. That right there, you definitely do get the crucified Messiah.
Yeah, you also have a community scroll at Qumran that has two messiahs, one from the priestly and one from the Israel. And there's like two different, as we mentioned earlier a couple of minutes ago, one of them's triumphant and one of them's suffering. So Jesus is the suffering Messiah. And why else wouldn't you? If Israel fell, you're going to write the suffering Messiah. That's what you're going to do. Unless Israel gets built back up, you're waiting for the triumphant Messiah. That's why today they're waiting for the second coming and waiting for him to come back and fix it all. Or unless you're a Jew, then you just think it's coming back to do all that at once. So either way, they're waiting. Yeah. So you have two messiahs either way. But
yeah, and they had the idea of two messiahs, but in Christianity they just combine them into two.
That's what I'm saying.
Two comings.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I said if you're a Christian, you're waiting for his second coming. If you're a Jew, you're just waiting for a triumphant Messiah to come. And you're just they just don't realize that their suffering servant already kind of did their thing, and they're just gonna forget about that now. So even Judaism has its holes in it. Like we poke holes in Christianity all the time. Judaism has just as many holes in it as Christianity does.
Yeah. Hey,
you know
the
what I mean?
Jews would never invent a crucified Messiah, Bart Ehrman. Well, what about Wisdom of Solomon that's pre-Christian, that has somebody who calls himself the child of the Lord. He claims God as his father. And then they test if his words are true. He calls himself the Son of God. They say, if he's the Son of God, God will help him, deliver him. They torture him. They condemn him to a shameful death. They did not imagine. They were deceived. The wickedness hath blinded them, exactly like the New Testament says. They did not know the mysteries of God, exactly like Paul says. All wisdom of Solomon. Condemned to a shameful death. Which, by the way, this connects to Psalm 22. For if the just man be the son of God, he will help him, deliver him from the enemies. That's obviously riffing off Psalm 22. All who see me mock me, they hurl insults, shaking their head. He trusts in the Lord, they say, let the Lord rescue him. Let him deliver him. And then that ties into Psalm 22, which says, they pierced my hands and feet. There's your pierced Messiah right there, just from connecting a couple passages. But then Bart Ehrman can get all this wrong and not acknowledge that these are the arguments. And then the Christians all over the world go, you can't even question. All the scholars agree. And Bart Ehrman says it's the consensus. And he's an atheist, so they don't have to argue any of this. They just cite their favorite Christian, former Christian.
And then another thing he doesn't include, he likes to wave off Isaiah 53. Like it had a different meaning when it was written. No one's denying that it had a different meaning when it's written. We're saying that they're taking that text that was written hundreds of years before and they're reapplying it to a different figure. And so either way you look at it, you have in 52 the introduction of the servant. After he's exalted, he's humiliated. He's despised and rejected. He bears the sufferings and sins of others in 53, 4 through 6. Silent in his suffering in 7 through 9. Unjustly killed. Buried with the wicked. Suffering is God's will, it says in 53:10, and then leads to his vindication, being justified. That's all. Like, what do you mean they're not going to create a suffering Messiah? It's already there. They already have one.
Cut off. The Messiah is cut off, just like the Messiah is cut off in Daniel 9. Also, the Anointed One, which they link to the Son of Man.
Yeah. It's so obvious what they're doing, but the reason why it's such a psychological operation is not because they're just doing all this fanfic. That's what people like. I like to call it fanfic. You have your Old Testament stories, and they're like retelling it. Like they're doing like fan fiction or redoing it. Like, you know how you find people do like DLCs of video games, or they do like a remake or whatever. You could do like the mods of Skyrim game, and some mod creates a whole new like level that you could play, and it's all they're just like creating their own fanfic basically of the game, of the original game. Well, that's what they're doing in the New Testament. But the reason why it's such a psychological operation is because what they end up doing is they end up trying to use this against the populations at large that are surrounding them, which is the Greco-Roman culture or Egyptian culture or European culture. And it even goes before Christianity. You even have Aristobulus, Eupolemus, Cleodamus Malchus, Artapanus, and Pseudo-Hecataeus. All 5 of those authors lived between like 150 to like 50 BC. And they're all Alexandrian Jews that are writing in Greek that were claiming that Moses is this character Musaeus from the Orphic Pythagorean tradition. And they were all making up this story that Orpheus and Pythagoras and Plato were being taught by Moses. And they were like going around and making up these bullshit lies about Plato being a fan of Moses and Orpheus being a student of Moses. All this is not true. And then they continue to do this in Christianity with, the mimesis of the Bacchae and the Gospels. But what ends up happening is when Christianity starts to become powerful, they take it to a whole nother level. And what you see is you start seeing this religious syncretism thing that they use, where they go around, for example, this is some notes that I had. It became even more effective when missionaries concurred with established cultural traditions and interlaced them into a fundamentally Christian synthesis. Sometimes old gods, or at least aspects and roles, were transferred to Christian saints, such as Demetrius of Thessaloniki, who inherits the role of the pagan god Demeter. They even wrote stories about him being told by the goddess Demeter to stop worshiping her because Christ is here now, and there's no more need for me. You just go follow Christ. You find in Justin Martyr saying things like, whatever things were rightly said among all men are property of us Christians. Basically saying anything you like from Plato or Aristotle or Empedocles or Heraclitus or Parmenides or whatever, Thales, that's actually Christian idea. They were tapping into our God. That's how they came up with these great ideas. But those are Christian ideas, guys. Make sure Thomas Aquinas doing the same thing, stealing Aristotle and Christianizing it. You can even read like Augustine's history. Augustine totally rewriting history, bastardizing history, quoting Varro and just like making shit up about how all these greats like Cicero were actually just really Christians. And the Norse world, after you get to like Charlemagne, they're doing the same thing. They're rewriting Odin and Thor into Christian context and making them be subservient to the gods. They're writing stories about like druids following Saint Patrick around and being like all woo woo over Saint Patrick, and he's like out saging them, and the druids are like, oh, Patrick, you're so much better than us. Let's just all be Christians. They're like, these are stories that these Christians are writing. They are literally going around and lying to people about their ancestral traditions and telling them that their ancestral traditions owe it all to Christianity. They're taking temples of the old gods and there's thousands of examples of this. I used to think it was hundreds. There are thousands of examples of ancient pagan sites that are converted into churches, because they know that these holy places are sacred. And if they can keep that and continue their tradition and just throw a cross on it. Remember we talked about how Pope Gregory wrote that letter to the bishop in London, and he said, don't destroy the pagan temples. Go in there, take the idol out, sprinkle it with holy water, put a cross on there, and now it is holy, and let them keep doing all their traditions. Let them have their trees and their sacred groves. And that's kind of what you see with Christmas and Halloween, is you see the result of that. The result of this sort of psychological operation ends up with like a compromise. Let us be your lords, let us rule over you, and we'll let you have your bread and circus, but just make sure that's all in the name of Christ. And that's kind of what happened. That's why you see Christmas, everyone's like, wait, I don't remember reading about decorating trees inside of our house in the Bible. I don't remember anything about reindeer or holly or like mistletoes or what is this? Why are we dressing up like ghosts in the middle of autumn at night? Why are we going door to door and handing out candy? And then you find out those are all ancient Roman, ancient pagan traditions. It's because of what Pope Gregory decreed. Let them do their bullshit. Just make sure they just honor Christ and just Christianize it. That's the psychological operation. And I think if you're aware of this now, if you become aware of this, it's your obligation to fix the wrongs of history. I think that's just me. I just feel like we're at a point. Our ancestors 100 years ago didn't have the internet. They didn't have the education that we can get right now. They didn't have what we have. They didn't know what we know. And if they would have known this, they probably would be doing what you and I are doing right now, I think. Definitely. They were psychologically operated on. It's like saying, oh, well, they won, so how would I follow the ancestors that lost? Well, and in 100 years from now, people are going to say 80% of the world got the COVID vaccine. So COVID won. COVID was right. The vaccine was correct, right? How is that? It's the same. It's the exact same argument, because everyone everyone got socially pressured. That means they won. I don't think that means they won at all. I think you're absolutely wrong about that.
You wanted me to play this, and then we're going to do the super chats, and we're going to keep it kind of short today. We got a few more minutes. You wanted me to play this. Let me get my screen shared. This one. Okay. All right. Oh, wait, you disappeared. There you are. There you are. You wanted to watch this?
I wanted to. This is so funny. This is a psychological operation right here.
The reason why we don't encourage people to convert is because we really don't see other people as being broken or bad by not having the Jewish faith.
That's nice.
We believe that all human beings are
so nice.
children of God, and our job is to make the world a better place. A Jewish person does it with 613 laws, and a non-Jewish person does it with how many laws? Very good.
I'm actually going to start learning about the Noahide laws soon.
The reason why
a golden star for the good boy
is because.
Did you notice how he was like, we don't think there's anything wrong with you for not being a Jew?
Yeah.
What the fuck? Who says that? Like,
we're not trying. I know.
Oh, seriously. Wow. So nice of you for not thinking something wrong with me. Holy shit. Yeah.
He's like, we just think there's something wrong if you're not a Noahide, if you don't follow Judaism for Gentiles.
And her initial response was like, I know, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to get on this. I swear to God, don't laugh at me. I'm going to fix it. It was like, that's like the attitude I kind of got from her.
This is
by the way, that's 7.
Beautiful
that's
face.
9. Oh,
no, 7 Noahide laws.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the new face for Noahidism. And the Psyop is, the goal of Judaism is to get all the world to worship their God that chose them. And they've been largely successful with that thanks to Christianity. And, you mentioned this at the beginning of the stream, too. It's interesting with all your research and the scholars you've been in interviewing, how young the Old Testament is, or the Torah as we know it. They were speculating and doing their messianic connections in the Dead Sea Scrolls like right after the Septuagint was made, pretty much. Very short period of time before Christianity. In fact, it's almost like it started and it was just like Dead Sea Scrolls, Christianity right after.
Yeah. There's one more video I wanted you to show.
Is it this one?
I'm actually going to start.
Yes. And I just play a couple seconds of this one, and then I just want to explain why. Oh, it's only a minute. Okay.
Micah, it meant that there was dry land that the dove could find the olive leaf. That was a symbol that God used and that we continue to use today at our church. What other symbol from the Noah's Ark story can you remember? There's another symbol in that story. Yes, Carter, a rainbow. Look, we've got some rainbows. I have a rainbow bracelet today. A rainbow. Do you know that rainbows are another kind of symbol beyond what God intended the rainbow to mean? Jarian. It is a symbol for LGBTQ plus people. That is right. And they're beautiful. I agree. I'm going to show you. There are doors with rainbow decals in each one of those pictures.
The reason why I wanted to show you this is because this is the this is the final result. We're looking at late stage Christianity. This is it. This is what Christianity is going to end up as. This is going to be, I wouldn't be surprised if this becomes like a sort of a mainstream Christianity in the next 100 years. Like this is going, and you can only, the reason why is because and at the fundamental level of Christianity is this sort of mindset, this sort of inclusive, egalitarian, everyone's special, rainbows, treat everyone, turn the cheek, let the sinners go, don't stone anybody. That is what it is.
Jesus is all about love. He loves everybody.
Yeah. Right. And the other, there's actually two outcomes that Christianity could lead to. This is one of them. The other one is Islam. Yeah, so it could go in any direction depending on which way they want to take it. If they want to get Old Testament-y, if they want to get Mosaic, if they want to follow the hardcore law, if they want to follow Jesus from Revelation, you end up in Islam. You end up with North Africa being taken over by the Muslims, by the Arab conquest. You end up with the fall of Constantinople, the fall of Antioch, Syria, the fall of Jerusalem, the fall of Alexandria, the fall of the seven churches of Asia, the fall of the Roman Empire itself gone, Spain gone. That could be the other. That's one side of the coin of Christianity. The other side of the coin of Christianity is this. And then like what you see in the Catholic Church is like kind of like a sort of equilibrium between those two sides. Either it's Deus Vult or this.
Right. So the Old Testament condemns homosexuality, but the Christians love the argument that, well, that's the Old Testament, that's the old law. We're under the new covenant now, so there's new laws, right? So does the New Testament condemn homosexuality? It doesn't, right? It doesn't even say anything about it.
Well, Paul does.
What does he say?
Paul says a lot of shit about gay, homosexual behavior, but here's the thing, though. Christians have always cherry-picked what they like and what they don't like. This is what every church does. Every church has its own identity. This church, think about this for a second. The fact that this church exists, that they're even wanting to use Christianity as a vehicle to push their whatever they're doing here, is because Christianity allows for that. You would never see a person like this using Mein Kampf, for example, to push this sort of ideology, because none of that exists in there. You would never see this woman that you're seeing on that video pull out Homer's Iliad and push the sort of rainbow flag type shit, because that's not what's in it. Homer's Iliad. It's a book about conquest and war. It's a book about like, but the Bible allows for you to do what she's doing. It gives her a little bit of an opening there.
It's almost just because like Jesus didn't condemn it explicitly, it does leave room open for it. I mean, but Paul does speak against it. The Old Testament definitely does.
Yeah.
But it doesn't stop any of these ladies from trying to use it to indoctrinate these kids. Hey, guys, you all believe in the Bible and the rainbow and the covenant, right? Well, the rainbow also means this.
Right.
And yeah, this is growing. And there's not a way to stop it either.
Well, I think about like Dan McClellan, who just says, he just straight up says, he just throws up his hands and goes, we negotiate the text. We can change Christianity and mold it how we want to mold it. And that's what these people are following. They're following that attitude. They're saying, yeah, why not? We can do whatever we want. The text has enough in there we can use. Let's just use what we want to use. Throw out the rest. This is what Christians have been doing since forever. Martin Luther, no different. You know?
Okay, let's do these super chats, and we got to keep it kind of short today. I got to go help the girls get ready for bed. Let's share this and there and get these power chats on. I saw a few come through.
Nice.
Appreciate you guys. And there we go. Any minute now. What do you? I always wait, and then as soon as I try to like fill the dead air and ask a question, then it always turns on.
Ooh. What happened?
Oh, there it is.
Oh.
Asylum 8 sent
that's what you're trying to
$10
do.
on Rumble. Despite any conflicts between Jews and Christians, it's undeniable that Jewish power/wealth grew directly correlated to Christianity's spread. First principles, Bible, causality has a strong argument.
Definitely in America.
Asylum
I'm
8
sorry, I
sent
missed that. I missed that.
$10
What'd
on
he say?
Rumble. Bart Ehrman isn't Christian for the same reason Tim O'Neill pretends to oppose Christianity. Controlled op gatekeepers.
Yes.
Do you know anything about Cabalistic Judaism? Did ancient Jews do anything like that? Yeah, writing Christianity, all the made-up stories that they write about in the Zohar. That's
Even
what
Justin
Christianity
Sledge
was.
agrees with that. Justin Sledge thinks that before Kabbalah, it was Christianity. And that's what you get with these sort of Yahwist, Gnostic, Abraxas people. They're doing Merkava mysticism shit. That's basically what it is.
It's in the Dead Sea Scrolls, too.
Yeah, Kabbalah is just the medieval sort of version of what you find in all these late, like more esoteric circles of Judaism.
Yeah, it's almost just like myth making. They claim are visions, stories happening, creating peshers. You see it in the Dead Sea Scrolls a lot as well too. So the Dead Sea Scrolls, the origins of mystical Judaism spread into Kabbalistic Judaism and Talmudic Judaism and Christianity. Same thing. Paul says he's caught up into the third heaven. Enoch has visionary things with Metatron and the Son of Man.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
exactly. Enoch is a great example. Enoch is the most mystical proto-Kabbalah shit you're going to find. And then Paul, or even not just Paul, even Jude, the book of Judah, it's Judas actually in Greek. They change it to Jude. Like later English Bibles it's actually the book of Jude, the letter of Judas or the epistle of Judas. And they change it to Jude so it doesn't sound as Jewish.
You don't get it mixed up with the other Judas.
Yeah. But it's Judas. It's the epistle of Judas quotes word for word from Enoch, which tells you that Christianity is mysticism, Jewish mysticism, because Enoch is Jewish mysticism. It's got the seven heavens, all that crap. It's all there. And Judas is quoting the epistle of Jude, quotes word for word from the book of Enoch, which didn't make the canon. So that's funny. A book that didn't make the canon is being cited, quoted word for word by another book that did make the canon. Why is that? It's such weird bullshit. So they're like, they can't make their minds up about shit.
Dr. Price as a sage here.
Yeah. By the way, that one super chat who said Tim O'Neill pretends to oppose Christianity. It's so true. Even if he really is an atheist, I don't really care if he is or not. I don't care if I'm not questioning if he's an atheist or not. I'm not calling him a crypto Christian. I don't care about that. You are an apologist. You are, whether you're an atheist or a Christian has nothing to do with if you're an apologist. Apologetics comes from the Greek word apologia, which means defense. That's why Plato writes the Apology, or Plato and Xenophon, they both wrote their own version of the Apology of Socrates. It means the defense of Socrates. It's not an apologetics book about how we should believe in Socrates. That's not what it means. It's a defense of Socrates. Socrates is on trial, and it's a defense. So when you're sitting there defending Christianity from claims of, it's borrowing from the myths, or it's myth or whatever. If your whole entire online presence is just defending Christianity and the honor of Christianity, and it wasn't that bad, the Dark Ages aren't real, mythicism,
Jesus definitely existed.
Yeah, Jesus definitely existed, and all this. That's your whole online presence. You are an apologist. Period. You're an apologist. You could be an atheist and an apologist. I don't care. Doesn't matter
What
to
are
me.
you
You're
working
still an
on
apologist.
now, Neil? What's the next video you're gonna bless us with? The Gnostic wisdom.
I'm still working on the Greek documentary, by the way.
Oh,
Had
yeah.
a few times. That's coming. But I also have a video coming out very soon of I interviewed a scholar, Philip Nothaft, about the actual Dark Ages. And this is like a really very highly prestige scholar who is very nuanced on this. He's not biased in any direction. He doesn't even like the term Dark Ages. He wasn't a fan of of Catherine Nixie's book. He does not like her book. But
Just because she calls it Dark Ages?
no, that's not
More
why.
issues.
He doesn't hate it. He just didn't think it was, he just thought it was, he just didn't like it for a couple of reasons. We didn't get into that though. He was fully on the same page as me about the facts though. About number one, the period following antiquity, following 4th century to the 9th century period, literary tradition was on the decline and nearly dead. People were not writing classics anymore. The literary tradition was gone. The golden age of Homer and Homer through Ovid, dead. He would totally agree with me on that. He totally agreed with me that book burning was a real thing, that Christians were defacing stuff, that we were burning down temples. He totally agreed with me that we lost 98% of our literature from the ancient world because Christians did not preserve it. I didn't even know it was that high.
And
He said it was. He said the number
pisses me off. They say
Yeah.
we're the only ones that saved anything. You're welcome. We preserve things for you. You're welcome.
2%.
Yeah.
We only have. He told me we lost 98% of our literature from the ancient world, from the classical period, gone.
And then the Christians will say, "Well, there's no evidence of mythicists from 2,000 years ago or 1900
Yeah, no, I wonder why. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they're going to preserve that.
Save that.
Yeah, they're going to preserve that, but not like the lost text of Homer. But then he also admitted to me that science and mathematics and
Lisa Renaisen sent
and
$5
medicine,
to Adam and Neil.
basically
Thanks
it was at
so
a
much
pause.
for your excellent work.
He said that he talked about how population decline, the plague. He said the term Dark Ages does have legitimacy to it. He admitted that, but he said like Galen was 2nd century AD, and Galen was the updated medical text that updated Dioscorides, Asclepiades, Hippocrates, all the big medical texts that go back to the 5th century BC. Every century got updated by some new author, all the way to the 2nd century AD in the time of Marcus Aurelius, who was Galen. He said, and then you have Aristotle, the peripatetic school, which preserved Aristotle's works. And he said Aristotle and Galen were the two science books that did not get updated until the 16th century. So from the 100s AD to the 1500s AD, there was no major breakthroughs in medicine or science at all.
No
They didn't
medical
update
advancement.
No medical advancements, no updating on astronomy, like figuring out if the Earth is round or flat, even though the Greeks already figured that out. No updating on heliocentrism, even though the Greek sources already mentioned that too. All this stuff. And then he also, last but not least, the last thing he admitted to me and it agreed with me on was the Renaissance wasn't Christians getting their shit together and being better Christians and coming up with better stuff. It was Christians going backwards and pulling up the pagans again and going, okay, the Vitruvius Man of you find in Da Vinci, that's from Vitruvius, the Latin poet, the Latin scientist, and going back to Archimedes and the writings and the math of Euclid and all this stuff. They had to go backwards in order to go forward. So in order to get the so-called Enlightenment, you needed a Renaissance, a rebirth of ancient pagan
Asylum 8 sent $5 on
science.
Rumble. Not only that, but they killed
So
tens of thousands
he was fully
with bleeding,
he
killed
fully
herbal medicine
understood where I was
witches.
coming from with all this. So,
And then the Christians say, "Oh, we created science, and in Christianity caused the Enlightenment." They'll say that too. They just gaslight and lie everything.
yeah, oh yeah.
It's a forge. It's a forgery. It's a fraud. It was made by a bunch of liars, and that's why you need forgeries and fraud and lies to try to defend it. And that's all we ever see. Neil, sorry to keep it a little short today, but I appreciate you for coming on, discussing the Psyop. Keep up the good work over there at Gnostic Informant. Everybody follow if you're not already. And thanks, everybody, for the support. Thank you, Lisa, for the dono there. We also had another super chat come in. I don't think you can hear it. I didn't have the audio turned on for you, but it said, I'll read it here. Thank you, Asalium. Says, not only that, but they killed tens of thousands with bleeding, killed herbal medicine witches. Oh, yeah, the bleeding things. Was that just a Christian thing, though?
What did it say? I didn't see that part. What did it say?
Bleeding.
No, what did the
Bloodletting?
super chat say?
It said, not only that, but they killed tens of thousands with bleeding, killed herbal medicine witches.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I think you meant blood.
That's like the blanket. That's like the blankets charge they gave for anyone who was a pagan, called them a witch,
right? And
or demon worship or something. That's what they would say.
Yep. All right. Well, hey guys, I'm going to be on a space tomorrow. I'm doing a space, talking to some of the JQ Radio guys. Asked me for an interview. That'll be tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern. So everybody stay tuned for that. And thank you again, Neil. Everybody sub the Gnostic Informants. Appreciate everybody for the support and for watching. Let us know what you think in the comments. And I will see you guys again very soon. Thank you, Neil, and take care. Oh, and we're going to go out to See Through It All 5-minute mix. No greater psyop in human history. We'll go out to that. I'll turn it on for you, Neil, if you want to watch. It's a
nice
epic mix. Starting with Dune. I wore my Blood of the Dragon for you today.
Oh, I forgot to put up the dragon thing. Shit.
All right. Guys, stay tuned for this. This is a fire edit. All right, here we go.
This prophecy is how they enslave us, how they dominate.
Zionism is the story of prophecy fulfillment.
If you bless Israel, I will bless you. If you curse Israel, I will curse you.
You know, the Bible says that you're cursed if you say anything bad about them, right? You need to bless them and you get the blessings. They're God's chosen people. They're the holy people in the Holy Land. You know that's what the Bible says, right, ma'am? How is this real life?
Because the Jews gave us all of our history and our traditions, okay? Because they presented the Messiah, if you will. Because they gave us spiritual things, we need to bless them with material things. Paul's very clear about that. So we take it seriously. One of the jobs, the callings of the church is to be a tangible blessing to the Jewish nation. And whether that's going and working their vineyards, whether it's providing for things that the military might need, there's a whole host of ways for the people of God to get involved, to fulfill what we've been called to do, all the way back to Genesis 12:3, which I tell people, listen, here's what this is. Loving Israel, it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Genesis 12:3, 1, 2, 3. We've got to do that. We've got to bless the nation of Israel.
At CUFI, Christians United for Israel, I'd say we are a Genesis 12:3 organization. We truly believe that God blesses those who bless Israel, curse those who curse Israel.
Those who bless you, I will bless. And those who curse you, I will curse. God blesses those who bless the Jews. When the United States, God forbid, turns away from the Jewish people, bad things happen even in America.
Everyone who tried to destroy the Jews, eventually God is wiping them out from the face of the earth. And the only ones who always survive and always be the center of the world are the Jewish people. as a Gentile, many of them understand them. Some of them understand the concept that God said to Abraham, those who will bless you will be blessed, and those who will curse you will be cursed. Some goyim understand the point.
And the number one reason they support Israel is because God says to Abraham, Avarcha mevarchecha alecha u'am, bless those who bless you, and I'll curse those who curse you. And I've heard recordings of them speaking to their congregations that they want to be on the side of the Jewish people because they want God to judge them.
If America turns away from Israel, then you're going to see America fall. What the law of the Bible that has been true for 4,000 years is, you will see America fall. I have never met a person in my life who hated Jewish people and was blessed. Never. They're always cursed. And I've never met a person who loved the Jewish people, particularly a Christian, who loved the Jewish people and wasn't blessed.
It says in the New Testament, you have to bless the Jewish people, love the Jewish people. That's what I found. Surprise.
I want to remind all of you that God has promised to bless those who bless Israel. In Genesis 12, verse 3, the Lord said of Israel, I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you I will curse, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. In Romans 15, verse 27 says, for if the Gentiles have been partakers of God's spiritual blessings toward the Jews, then it is our duty to minister to them in material things. And Jesus said himself, salvation is of the Jews. Think of that. Where did God first reveal salvation? According to his ancient prophets, to the Jews. I may be a Gentile on the outside. There's nothing I can do about that. But on the inside, I worship the God of the Jews. See this book? There's only one nation featured that is the key role of this book. Only one. It's Israel. Period. It's not America. Shocker. The U.S. is going to dissipate and eventually be amalgamated or become, what's the word, homogeneous into the group of the nations of the world. It's just going to, America's prominence has already begun to wane, and we have become weak, and we have lost our will, and certainly we have lost our Constitution. Having said that, we're just going to be assimilated into the nations of the world. America is going to go among the nations of the world. You can't say that about Israel. So everybody listen, be careful who you're listening to. Because God is going to, and he's about to, refocus his attention on Israel. God is going to be doing more with Israel. God has announced in the scripture that those who bless Israel, he will bless. Genesis chapter 12. And I will support Israel because God says to do that.